What happens when a Hollywood legend sits down for what should be a simple morning interview, only to have the host turn the conversation into a personal attack? It only took 42 seconds for Savannah Guthrie to push Jamie Foxx to his breaking point. What you're about to hear is the most intense exchange to ever happen on live television, a moment where professionalism shattered and raw emotion took over. This is the story of how a respected talk show host crossed every line imaginable and how one guest refused to stay silent. The studio lights were blazing on a typical morning. Jamie Foxx walked onto the Today Show set with a warm smile, ready to discuss his latest project. The audience applauded as he shook hands with the hosts and settled into his chair. Everything seemed normal. Savannah Guthrie sat across from him, notes in hand, camera crew positioned perfectly. But the moment she opened her mouth, the temperature in the room changed. "Jamie, let's talk about your recent health scare," Savannah said, leaning forward with an expression that looked more like a prosecutor than a host. "Some people are saying you weren't actually as sick as you claimed. How do you respond to those who think you were exaggerating for attention?" Jamie's smile faded. He blinked twice, clearly caught off guard. "Excuse me? I nearly died. My family was told to prepare for the worst." "What are you talking about?" The other hosts, Hoda Kotb and Craig Melvin, exchanged uncomfortable glances. You could see them shifting in their seats, unsure whether to intervene. Savannah pressed on, completely undeterred. "Well, Jamie, there are rumors circulating. You disappeared from the public eye for months, gave very few details, and now you're back promoting a movie. Some critics are questioning the timing. Don't you think the public deserves more transparency?" Jamie sat back in his chair, his jaw tightening. "The public? You mean tabloids and gossip sites? I don't owe anyone a detailed medical report. I shared what I felt comfortable sharing. My daughter stood by my hospital bed not knowing if I would wake up. How dare you sit here and suggest I made that up?" Hoda tried to step in, her voice gentle. "Jamie, I think what we're all saying is we're just happy you're healthy now and back with us." But Savannah wasn't finished. She cut Hoda off mid-sentence. "Let me finish, Hoda. Jamie, you've built your career on being open with your fans. Why the secrecy now? Unless there's something you're not telling us." The air became thick. Craig Melvin looked directly at the camera, then at Savannah, silently pleading for her to stop. The studio audience was dead quiet. Jamie's eyes narrowed. His voice dropped low, controlled, but you could hear the anger simmering beneath. "Something I'm not telling you? You want to know what happened? Fine. I had a brain bleed. I had a stroke. The doctors didn't know if I would survive. My family prayed over me every single day. I couldn't walk. I couldn't talk properly. I had to relearn everything. Is that transparent enough for you, Savannah? Or do you need me to show you the hospital bills too?" Savannah didn't flinch. Instead, she doubled down. "I'm just asking the questions that people are thinking, Jamie. Your story has changed a few times. First, it was a medical complication. Then, it was something more serious. People notice inconsistencies. That's all I'm saying." Jamie stood up. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. The entire crew froze. Cameras kept rolling. "My story changed? No. I gave the information I was comfortable giving when I was comfortable giving it. That's called privacy. That's called processing trauma. Something you clearly know nothing about." Hoda stood up too, trying to defuse the situation. "Jamie, please, let's take a breath here. Nobody is accusing you of anything." "Really?" Jamie turned to Hoda. "Because it sure sounds like your co-host just did exactly that. She just accused me of lying about nearly dying on national television." Craig finally spoke up, his voice firm. "Savannah, maybe we should move on to the next topic. Jamie came here to talk about his film." Savannah looked at Craig, then back at Jamie. Her expression was cold, almost dismissive. "We're just having a conversation. If Jamie can't handle tough questions, maybe he shouldn't be doing interviews." That was the final straw. Jamie laughed, but it was a laugh of disbelief, not humor. "Tough questions? You're not a journalist, Savannah. You're a bully with a microphone. There's a difference between asking tough questions and being disrespectful. You crossed that line 5 minutes ago." The audience gasped. Some people covered their mouths in shock. Hoda looked like she wanted to disappear. Craig sat frozen, staring at the desk. Savannah's face turned red. She opened her mouth to respond, but Jamie raised his hand. "No, I'm done. You don't get to sit there in your comfortable chair with your perfect makeup, making millions of dollars, and question my integrity. You don't get to imply that I faked a medical crisis for publicity. That's disgusting. That's beneath you. Or maybe it's not, because clearly this is who you are. Savannah finally stood, her voice rising. I have every right to ask questions. This is my show. If you don't like it, you can leave. Jamie nodded slowly. You're absolutely right. I can leave. And I will. He started unhooking his microphone. His hands moved deliberately, not rushed, not frantic. He was calm now, his decision made. Hoda reached out, placing a hand on Jamie's arm. Jamie, please, don't go. We can talk about the movie. Let's just start over. Jamie looked at Hoda with genuine warmth. Hoda, you're a class act. You always have been. But I can't sit here and let someone disrespect me and my family like this. I just can't. He turned to Craig. Craig, you're good people too. I respect you both. But this, he gestured toward Savannah, this is unacceptable. Savannah crossed her arms. So, you're just going to run away? That's very mature, Jamie. Very professional. Jamie stopped walking. He turned back to face her one last time. The cameras zoomed in on his face. You could see the hurt in his eyes, mixed with anger and disappointment. You want to talk about professionalism? A professional host would never ambush a guest with accusations. A professional host would show empathy for someone who nearly died. A professional host would know the difference between journalism and tabloid garbage. But you're not a professional, Savannah. You're just mean. And I feel sorry for you. The silence that followed was deafening. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Even the camera operators seemed stunned. Savannah's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. For the first time in the entire exchange, she looked uncertain. Craig finally broke the tension. Jamie, man, I'm sorry. This got out of hand. You didn't deserve this. Jamie nodded. At Craig, I appreciate that. I really do. Then he looked at the audience. To everyone watching, thank you for your support during my recovery. It meant everything to me and my family. I'm sorry you had to witness this. He handed his microphone to a producer who had rushed over. The producer whispered something to him, probably apologizing or trying to convince him to stay. Jamie shook his head politely and started walking off set. Each step echoed through the studio. Savannah called after him, her voice sharp. Fine, leave. We don't need you anyway. Jamie paused at the edge of the stage. Without turning around, he said, No, Savannah, you needed me. That's why I'm here. But you just threw it away. Good luck explaining this to your producers. And with that, he walked off. The cameras caught every second, his back straight, his head held high. He didn't storm off. He didn't slam any doors. He simply left with dignity, which somehow made the moment even more powerful. Back on set, chaos erupted. Producers rushed in. Hoda had tears in her eyes. Craig looked furious. Savannah stood there, trying to maintain her composure, but you could see the cracks forming. She knew she had messed up. Everyone knew. One of the producers spoke frantically into his headset. Cut to commercial now. But it was too late. The damage was done. Millions of people had just watched a beloved actor get disrespected on live television. They watched him stand up for himself. They watched him refuse to be treated poorly. Hoda turned to Savannah, her voice shaking. What were you thinking? Why would you say those things? Savannah's facade cracked. I was just doing my job. I was asking questions. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Craig shook his head. No, Savannah, that wasn't journalism. That was cruel. You accused a man of lying about almost dying. How did you think that was going to go? Savannah's hands trembled slightly. The viewers want honesty. They want us to ask the tough questions. I was giving them what they want. Hoda wiped her eyes. The viewers want respect. They want compassion. You just humiliated someone on national television. Someone who trusted us enough to come here and share their story. A senior producer approached the desk, her face pale. She looked directly at Savannah. My office. Now, her tone left no room for argument. Savannah nodded stiffly and followed her off set. The studio fell into an eerie quiet. Craig looked at the main camera. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. But his voice lacked conviction. Everyone knew the show was essentially over. There was no recovering from what had just happened. Behind the scenes, Jamie was in his dressing room, collecting his things. A production assistant knocked softly on the door. Mr. Fox, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. What happened out there was wrong. Jamie smiled sadly. Thank you. I appreciate that. But this isn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. The assistant hesitated. For what it's worth, everyone backstage is on your side. What she said was completely out of line. Jamie nodded. That means a lot. Really. But I need to get out of here. I can't be in this building right now. As Jamie left the studio, staff members lined the hallways. Some gave him supportive nods. Others offered quiet words of encouragement. One makeup artist even gave him a quick hug. You handled that with so much grace, she whispered. Don't let her make you feel bad about standing up for yourself. Jamie paused. I almost lost my life. I fought so hard to get back to doing what I love. I'm not going to let anyone make me feel guilty for wanting respect. Thank you for understanding that. Back in the producer's office, Savannah sat in a chair facing the desk. The senior producer, a woman named Margaret, who had been with the show for 20 years, stared at her in disbelief. What were you thinking? Margaret's voice was low but filled with anger. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Jamie Foxx is one of the most beloved actors in America. He almost died. He came here to talk about his recovery and his new project, and you ambushed him. Savannah tried to defend herself. I was asking legitimate questions. The public has been speculating about his health. Someone needed to address it. Margaret slammed her hand on the desk. The public? You mean gossip blogs and trolls on social media? Since when do we base our interviews on rumors? You accused him of lying. You questioned his integrity. You made this show look terrible. Savannah's confidence wavered. I thought I was being a good interviewer. I thought I was pushing for transparency. You thought wrong, Margaret said coldly. Good interviewers know the difference between tough questions and cruel accusations. They know when to push and when to show compassion. You showed none, zero, and now we have a massive problem. Meanwhile, on set, Hoda and Craig tried to continue the show. They brought out the next guest, a chef demonstrating holiday recipes. But the energy was gone. The audience seemed distracted. The host seemed distracted. Everyone was thinking about what had just happened. During a commercial break, Hoda turned to Craig. I can't believe she did that. I've known Jamie for years. He's one of the kindest people in this industry. He didn't deserve that treatment. Craig nodded grimly. I know. And the worst part is, he tried to stay calm. He tried to explain himself. She just kept pushing and pushing. It was like she wanted him to snap. Hoda looked toward the hallway where Savannah had disappeared. Do you think she realizes how badly she messed up? Craig shrugged. I don't know, but I know this is going to follow her for a long time. You can't do what she just did and expect people to forget. In Margaret's office, the conversation was reaching its conclusion. Margaret leaned back in her chair, exhausted. Savannah, I've been doing this for 2 decades. I've seen hosts make mistakes. We all do. But this wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. You chose to be cruel. You chose to prioritize ratings over human decency. Savannah looked down at her hands. What happens now? Margaret sighed. Now we do damage control. You're going to issue an apology, a real one, not some generic statement. You're going to acknowledge what you did wrong and apologize sincerely. And then we're going to have some very serious conversations about your future on this show. Savannah's eyes widened. My future? Are you saying I might get fired? I'm saying that what you did today was unacceptable. The network is going to review this incident. They're going to look at the tape. They're going to see how you treated a guest who was vulnerable and honest. And they're going to make a decision. That's all I can tell you right now. Outside the studio, Jamie got into his car. His publicist was already calling, having seen what happened. He answered the phone, his voice tired. I'm okay, he said before she could ask. I'm angry and hurt, but I'm okay. I did the right thing by leaving. I wasn't going to sit there and be disrespected. His publicist agreed. You absolutely did the right thing. Everyone is already talking about it. The internet is on your side. People are furious with her. You showed incredible restraint and dignity. Jamie looked out the window as his car pulled away from the building. You know what hurts the most? I was excited to be there. I wanted to share my story. I wanted to inspire people who might be going through something similar. And she turned it into an interrogation. You'll get other chances, his publicist assured him. Better platforms. Hosts who will actually listen and care. This was her loss, not yours. Back at the studio, the show was wrapping up. Craig gave the closing remarks, his usual warmth noticeably absent. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. But everyone wondered if they really would see Savannah tomorrow, or ever again. As the credits rolled, the studio cleared out. Technicians unplugged cables. Lights dimmed. The set that had been so alive with tension just an hour ago was now empty and quiet. But the impact of what happened there would echo for much longer. Hoda gathered her things, her mind still replaying the confrontation. She thought about Jamie's face when Savannah questioned his health crisis. The pain in his eyes, the way his voice trembled with barely controlled anger. He had every right to be upset. Anyone would. Craig stopped by Hoda's dressing room. "You heading out?" She nodded. "Yeah, I need to get out of here. Today was awful." "Agreed. I've been doing this job for a long time, and I've never seen anything like that." The way she went after him, it was relentless. Hoda grabbed her coat. Do you think she understands why it was wrong? Or does she still think she was just doing her job? Craig leaned against the doorframe. Hard to say. Some people get so caught up in being tough and edgy that they forget to be human. Maybe this will be a wake-up call for her. Maybe not. They walked out together, leaving the building in silence. The security guard at the front desk gave them a sympathetic nod. Even he had heard about what happened. News travels fast in a television studio. Savannah finally emerged from Margaret's office. Her face was red, her eyes puffy. She had been crying. The confident, almost arrogant woman who had started the interview was gone. In her place was someone who looked small and defeated. She walked to her dressing room without making eye contact with anyone. Inside, she sat down heavily in her chair and stared at her reflection in the mirror. The same face that had smiled for the cameras just hours ago now looked haunted. Her phone buzzed constantly. Messages from friends, colleagues, even her agent. She didn't have the courage to read them yet. She knew what they would say. Some would be supportive. Others would be disappointed. Most would be asking what on earth she was thinking. She thought about Jamie's final words. "You're just mean." Those 3 words cut deeper than anything else, because deep down, she worried they might be true. Not all the time. Not to everyone, but today? Today she had been mean, unnecessarily so. At his home, Jamie sat with his daughter. She had seen clips of the interview online. "Dad, I'm so proud of you," she said, hugging him tightly. "You stood up for yourself. You didn't let her treat you badly." Jamie held her close. "Thank you, sweetheart. I had to leave. I couldn't stay there and pretend what she was saying was okay. It wasn't okay." "She was horrible," his daughter said firmly. "Questioning whether you were really sick? Who does that? Everyone knows what we went through. Everyone knows how scared we were." Jamie nodded. "Some people forget that celebrities are human too. They forget that we have feelings, that we hurt, that we struggle. They think because we're in the public eye, we're fair game for any kind of treatment." His daughter squeezed his hand. "Well, you showed them today that you won't accept that. You showed everyone watching that it's okay to walk away from people who treat you poorly. That's important." Jamie smiled at her. "When did you get so wise?" She laughed. "I learned from the best. You've always taught me to stand up for myself, to not let anyone make me feel small. You practice what you preach today." The conversation between them was healing. Jamie realized that while Savannah's questions had hurt, his response had been right. He had defended himself without being cruel. He had stated facts without attacking. He had left with dignity. That mattered more than anything. Back at the network, emergency meetings were being held. Executives watched the footage over and over. They read through viewer reactions online. The consensus was clear. Savannah had crossed a line, a big one. What she did wasn't just bad television, it was bad human behavior. One executive, a woman named Sarah, who had greenlit many successful shows, shook her head in disbelief. "This is a nightmare. Jamie Foxx is beloved. He survived a life-threatening medical emergency. He comes on our show to share his story, and our host attacks him. How do we come back from this?" Another executive chimed in. "We need to make a statement. We need to apologize to Jamie, and we need to figure out what to do about Savannah." The head of programming sighed heavily. "She's a talented broadcaster, but talent doesn't excuse cruelty. We have standards. We have a reputation to maintain. And right now, she's damaged both." As the day turned to evening, the story spread beyond just morning show viewers. News outlets picked it up. Entertainment websites wrote detailed recaps. Social media exploded with opinions. The overwhelming majority sided with Jamie. People praised him for standing up for himself. They criticized Savannah for her insensitivity. Some viewers shared their own stories of surviving medical emergencies. They talked about how hard it was to recover, how personal that journey felt, how violated they would feel if someone questioned whether their experience was real. Jamie's situation resonated with them deeply. Other viewers who worked in television commented on Savannah's behavior. They pointed out that good interviewers build trust with their guests. They create safe spaces for honest conversations. They don't ambush people. They don't accuse them of lying. They show respect. Through it all, Jamie remained quiet. He didn't post on social media. He didn't give additional interviews. He let his actions speak for themselves. He had said what needed to be said in that moment. He didn't need to say more. Savannah, however, was under immense pressure to respond. Her team was working on a statement. But what could she say? Sorry didn't seem like enough. Explaining her thought process would sound like excuses. She was stuck in a situation entirely of her own making. Late that night, sitting alone in her apartment, Savannah finally read through all the messages. Her mother had called 6 times. Her best friend sent a text saying simply, "What happened?" Her mentor from early in her career wrote a long message about the importance of empathy in journalism. She pulled up the video of the interview and forced herself to watch it. Seeing herself on screen, hearing her own words, watching Jamie's reactions, it all hit differently now. She had been so focused on asking tough questions that she never stopped to consider if they were the right questions. She saw the moment when Jamie's expression changed from friendly to defensive. She saw Hoda trying to intervene. She saw Craig's discomfort. She saw the audience's shock. And she saw herself pushing and pushing, oblivious to the pain she was causing. The worst part was watching Jamie leave. The way he walked off with such dignity despite being so hurt. The way he thanked Hoda and Craig, even in that terrible moment. The way he apologized to the audience for them having to witness the confrontation. He had been the bigger person. She had not. Savannah closed her laptop. For the first time all day, she allowed herself to really feel the weight of what she had done. She had hurt someone, badly, someone who had done nothing to deserve it, someone who had simply wanted to share his story of survival and recovery. She thought about calling Jamie to apologize personally, but she didn't have his number. And even if she did, would he want to hear from her? Would an apology mean anything now? Could she even find the right words to express how sorry she was? Meanwhile, at another network, a producer watched the clip and immediately reached out to Jamie's team. "We would love to have Jamie on our show. We promise a respectful, thoughtful conversation. No ambushes, no accusations, just honest dialogue." Other shows followed suit with similar offers. Jamie's publicist compiled the list of requests. "You've got your pick of any show you want now," she told him. "Everyone wants to give you the platform you deserve, the platform you should have had this morning." Jamie considered his options carefully. "I want to talk about my recovery. I want to inspire people. But I need to know the host will treat the topic with respect. I can't go through another morning like this morning." "You won't have to," his publicist assured him. "These producers understand what went wrong today. They've seen the backlash. They know that treating guests well isn't just the right thing to do. It's good business." The incident became a teaching moment for the entire television industry. Production teams held meetings about how to prepare for interviews. They discussed the difference between challenging questions and hostile ones. They talked about reading the room and knowing when to pivot. They examined what went wrong so spectacularly on the Today Show. Young journalists studied the exchange. Their professors used it as an example of what not to do. "Watch how the guest becomes defensive," one professor explained to her class. "That's your sign that you've gone too far. That's when a good interviewer backs off and rebuilds trust." This host did the opposite. The students watched Jamie's composed exit. "Notice his body language," the professor continued. "He's angry, yes, but he's controlled. He makes his point clearly and leaves. He doesn't shout. He doesn't curse. He doesn't make a scene. He simply refuses to participate in a conversation that has become disrespectful." One student raised her hand. "Do you think the host will apologize?" The professor shrugged. "She should. Whether she will, and whether it will be sincere, remains to be seen. But the damage is already done. Her reputation is tarnished. Jamie's reputation, on the other hand, has only improved. People respect someone who stands up for themselves with grace." As days passed, the story continued to dominate headlines. Think pieces were written about accountability in media. Discussions emerged about how society treats celebrities, especially regarding their personal struggles. Questions were raised about the line between public interest and invasion of privacy. Jamie's movie, the one he had come to promote, saw a surge in interest. People wanted to support him. They wanted to see his work. They wanted to celebrate his recovery and his talent. The film's producers couldn't have asked for better publicity, though they certainly wished it had come under different circumstances. For Savannah, the days following the incident were the hardest of her career. She went from being a respected host to a controversial figure. Her every move was scrutinized. Her past interviews were examined for similar behavior. People questioned whether this was a